Hello everyone. So this is the second video in PCF component series, which is PowerApps component framework. I created the part one of this series, which was related to overview of PowerApps component framework. Now in this video, we will create our one or the first PCF component, and I will tell you what are the different files and what is their purpose in this video, and at the end we will see how we can see the output by using different npm commands. So let's deep dive into this video. So we will be creating our first component, that is PCF component, PowerApps component, framework component using PowerApps CLI. As I mentioned earlier that I have already created one video on PowerApps CLI. The link I will give you in the description of this video. So for creating a new component project, you have to use this command, pack command, which are called pack commands, pack PCF init hyphen namespace. This is the namespace name which you can provide, then any name you can provide, and then the template. The template, if you remember, I talked about there are two types of template or types which can be created in PowerApps component framework. One is of the field type and another is a data set. So we are using this command to create our solution or the component project. These are the reusable components. These can be treated as code components, reusable components, which helps us to extend the standard functionality of Power Apps controls or component. So we will be using basically TypeScript to develop these components. So this is the first and foremost command you have to remember always. To create a project, you have to use the command pack PCF init namespace, the name of the namespace you have to provide, then name of the project or the component you have to provide, and then the template. Additionally, you can use in the same line hyphen run npm install, or you can do the npm installation maybe later in the next command. Now here namespace is the namespace for the project. Name is the project name which will be created as your project name. You can only use characters with the ranges A to Z, A to small z, or 0 to 9. And the first character can't be a number. So please remember these are some naming conventions for creating your project name. And template is like field or dataset. It can be either dataset or field. For this particular demo, for our first PCF component, I have used the field type. You can see hyphen template field. Now, one important thing to remember here that instead of using this full abbreviations, you can also use for namespace hyphen ns. For name, you can use hyphen n, and for template, you can use hyphen t also. That is also possible and allowed. So pack PCF init hyphen ns, namespace name hyphen n, the name of the project, and hyphen t, which will talk about the template. So this is the first and foremost thing. I have already ran this command just to save the time for this video. And once this command will be created, the solution for the PCF component will be created. And after that, after this, what I will be talking about that what are the different files which gets created. So I will be showcasing that. But before that, let's jump to how to create this, how I created it, and how the solution structure looks like in Visual Studio Code. So I'm just switching my window. First of all, I will navigate to the command prompt, created another folder demo1. Here I will be running the command in Visual Studio Code. So I'm just navigating to Visual Studio Code now, where I will be showcasing you that how the solution structure gets created and what are the different files we are going to talk today in this particular video. So this is the Visual Studio which I have opened. The first and foremost thing what you have to do to work with PCF, this is a series of videos, as I said, so I will tell you all the things step by step in detail and very slowly so that you understand and there is no mistakes at the end. So first and foremost, once you open the Visual Studio, whatever folder you have created, in my case, I created demo1. I opened it in Visual Studio Code. That is my editor. What you have to do is you have to go to the extensions in Visual Studio Code, click on extensions and search for Power Platform. I just wrote power and it gave me one maybe extension which is called Power Platform Tools. You have to click on this and this you will find Power Platform Tools. Since I have already installed it, that's why I'm getting uninstalled. But if you are doing it for the first time, please click on install. It will install by itself in few seconds or minutes. This Power Platform Tools, basically this is the extensions which is very helpful and which basically manages the Power Platform environments, and it allows to create, build, and maybe deploy Power Platform solutions, packages, and portals. So if you have to use the pack command, maybe the PAC command, which I told you earlier, if you have to create the project, this extension should be very much installed in the first hand. If you will not install this extension, that you will not be able to use the pack commands. This is very, very important. So this is the first step which I told you what you have to do in Visual Studio Code. Next, what you have to do is you have to just click on view and just click on terminal. So a new terminal will get open in the Visual Studio Code itself. So we are within Visual Studio Code only. All right. And then you have to run the command. As I told you that you have to run the command. The command is pack PCF init namespace, some namespace name, and the template field hyphen run npm install. What it will do, it will take maybe a few minutes or few seconds, and then it will give you a message: the PowerApps component framework project was successfully created. So what you can do is that the project has been successfully created, and then once it is created, it will maybe take some more minutes to install the npm install. So everything, node modules, all those things get installed for you. It will take some time. You can see on my screen that it gets installed. It took some time, and finally all the node modules gets installed. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. You can see this is my project folder. This is the project name which I gave, linear input control demo. In this demo, these are the files. In this project, these are the files which got created. Basically, these are the files which got created. Now, let's go back to our PPT and we will understand each file step by step in detail. That what are the different files which gets created once you run the pack PCF init command. Okay. So now manifest file. This is the first and foremost file we will be talking about, the manifest file. These are the project files now we are talking about. Okay. So the first and foremost is the this manifest file. So if you go to your project, you will find a file called control manifest.input.xml. Very, very important file. Now, what does this file do? Now, this contains basically the information about namespace, the constructor, version, display name key, description key, and control type. So if we see here, you see the manifest file, it consists of namespace, the constructor, version, display name, description key, and the control type. So basically these are the different I can say the parameters which basically the manifest file has, and these defines the project structure, basically the project details or the metadata about the project. So this is about the manifest file, that what manifest file consists of. This is the first part of the manifest file. The other part of the manifest file, which also contains maybe the resources part and other type groups which we will talk about in the later part of this video. Now let's talk about the other files also which got created by in the project structure. So the other files are, for example, you can see here, let me minimize it. There's eslint.trc.json, .gitignore, maybe packagelog.json, package.json, pcconfig.json, and tsconfig.json. So I can say these are some of the configuration files. These are some of the configuration files which also gets created. ESLintTRC is basically to manage the linting rules. Gitignore defines the files which should be kept out of the Git source control. Package.json maybe defines the project dependencies and npm scripts. Package.log.json, it is created automatically based on your package.json file. PCconfig.json, this is configuration file for PCF project build process. And tsconfig.json is the TypeScript configuration file. So till now, what we have talked about, that how to create the project structure for PCF component, and we have talked about a little bit about the manifest file and then the configuration file. The next part is the project file. So you can see a project file also gets created with the extension PCF proj. And how it gets created, this is the component project file which gets created. This name is based on the folder where you initialized your component. So you remember we initialized our component in a folder called demo1. That is why this demo1.pcf proj has been created. So this is again the different file. The other thing is the index.ts file. This is the main code file. So you can see here the index.ts file. So let me expand linear input control demo, either index.ts you can find directly here. So this is the main code component file, I will say, which also consists of the lifecycle methods or the lifecycle functions, which we will talk about later. So for this demo, which is a field type which we have created, the field template we have used, we will be start making some code changes in the manifest file, and then we will make some changes in the index.ts file also. So first of all, we will add some type group element in the manifest file. We will add the definition of a type group element named numbers within the control element. So let's talk about what is type group element and how we have added it in the manifest file in this project. So you can see here, we'll go to the manifest file first of all. And in the manifest file, you can see that we already talked about the basic properties, which is the metadata, which talks about the metadata of the project. Here I have added a type group element. So type group element of the name numbers. Now type group is basically used, which you can use in the manifest file to define the initial values. So here I am trying to define some initial values with which is related to the numbers, which could be of whole numbers, currency, decimal type, and so on. So this I have first of all included in the manifest file. The second thing what we have to do is the edit the property element. This is very important, that how to edit the property element. Now, in manifest file, you will find that there are some property elements created, like property name equal to sample property. It has other attributes also, for example, display name key, description key, and usage and required. So these are some of the attributes of the property. What I have done for this demo, I have commented the default one and I have added my own property. You can add many properties here. Please remember, it's not like that only one property you can add. I will be showcasing you in different demos or different videos in this series, which I will be creating later. But for this particular video, I have created only one property, custom property, which you can say. I have given it a name, control value, description, display name, of type numbers, of type group numbers, usage equal to bound, and required equal to true. Now we have to understand what is the meaning of all these attributes in detail. So let me navigate here. You can see name is the name of the property. Display name key, this is the display name which will be visible on the UI. Description key, self-understood. Of type group. Now this is important. Use the of type group attribute when you want to refer to the name of a specific type group. Here we are referring to the type group named numbers created in the previous step. So what we are doing here is that of type group numbers. So you remember we created one type group with the name numbers that we are referring in our property. Next is usage. Usage has two properties. You can give two values to this usage attribute. One is bound, another is input. So what is bound? Bound means it is only bound to value of one particular column. But if you specify input as usage equal to input, then input properties are either bound to a column or they can also contain the static values. So please remember, this usage can have two values, either bound or input. Let's go to the next step. Next step is edit the resources element. Now I have edited the resources element. You can see this is the resources element. Now this is the default line, which code line which comes in any power apps component framework. You can add your own resources here. So I've added a css file, css path equal to some css file which I created, and order equal to 1, order equal to 1. This defines the order in which this will get loaded in your Power Apps component. So these are some of the basic changes which I did in the manifest file. Let me repeat it very quickly. First, I added the type group. Second, I created a property. And third, I changed the resources section in this manifest file. Please remember, all these things which I'm showing you in this video will be available in my GitHub repository. So don't worry, I will give the link of my GitHub repository for this video in the description of this video. So you will get all the code base, all the details, which you can either clone from the GitHub or you can reuse it. Okay, so we have made the changes in the manifest file. Let's go to the next file, changes, where we have to do the changes in the index.ts file. So let me open the index.ts file. It's already there. So this is the index.ts file, which is the main component file and which also consists of the lifecycle functions or the lifecycle methods. So the first and foremost is add properties for the control. So these are some of the properties which I've added for the control. For example, underscore value, notify output change, a function, label element, input element, container, context, and refresh data. So all these are some of the properties of the control which I've added in the first place. Add the refresh data function as the event handler. So I've added a function called refresh data, which will be refreshing the value on the UI. Update the init function. Now let's come to the init function. So init function is public init. Please remember, this is the default functions which comes in the index.ts files. You don't have to create these functions, but you have to give the definition of these functions, what you want to achieve in the init function. So init function is there. The other functions which I talked about in my previous video is the update view function, get outputs, and the destroy. These are the four lifecycle methods or lifecycle functions in any PCF component. So first of all, in the init method, you can see it consists of four parameters: context, notify output change, state, and container. The definition of all these parameters or the arguments are given here. Context, the entire property bag is available to control via the context object. Second is notify output change, a callback method to alert the framework that the control has new output ready, which can be rendered on the UI as well. State, which is a piece of data that persists in one session for a single user. Containers, so this is the container. If a control is marked control type equal to standard, it will receive an empty div. So these are some of the parameters which are by default defined in the init method. Init method is always of type void. Please remember. Now here I have written some code. Now here what I want to achieve is that a number value, I want to make a change. I want to make a change in that numeric value field type to the slider type. So as I told you, I have used the template field in this particular demo. So the template I have used is field. So I can only work with one column or multiple columns only in the field template type. So here in this demo, what I want to achieve is that there is a number type or numeric data type, which I want to represent it as a slider. So what I'm doing is that this dot context container notify output change refresh data input element. I'm creating an input element of type. I'm giving just type range, and then minimum maximum class id, everything I'm defining it, and then I'm writing some logic that this dot input element dot set attribute value, and I'm just using some ternary operator. So all this code base you will definitely get in my GitHub repository, and you will get the link of the GitHub repository in the description of this video. I have updated the init function, edit the update view, get outputs, and destroy. So edit the update view function, edit the get output function, edit the destroy function, and update the init function. So you can see here we are just editing or updating the functions which are already available in any PCF component. So if I talk about update view, now update view has one parameter which is called context. Please remember it is again of type void. Now what is context? The entire property bag is available to control via the context object. That is the context here. Next is your get outputs. Get outputs does not contain any parameter, but it is called by the framework prior to a control receiving the data. So I'm just setting the control value here. And destroy is basically used to remove the component from the DOM structure from the UI. So I'm just saying this dot input element dot remove event listener input this dot refresh data. So these are the basic code changes, very minimal one, which I have implemented in the index.ts file. Next is I will show you the PCF demo, but before this, we have to implement one more thing, which is we have to generate the manifest design types.t.ts file. So for this, you have to run the command npm run refresh types. So once you run this command, what will happen that we have to run this npm run refresh types. You have to refresh the types. All right. What it will do, it will initialize generating the manifest type and so on, and it will get succeeded. And then what we have reached to here is now the building the component. So for building the component, you have to use the command npm run build. When you run this command npm run build, so what happens is that the component is compiled into a folder. A folder gets created out with the name out, your controls, control name. This folder gets created. And what are the build artifacts? Bundle.js gets created, and control manifest.xml dots created. So you please notice very carefully the basic manifest file, the initial manifest file which got created was control manifest.input.xml. But the moment you run the moment you run npm run build in your terminal, this folder gets created, which is out folder. In this out folder, another controls folder gets created, and another folder gets created similar to your project name. Here you will find bundle.js and the control manifest.xml. These are the basically you can say the component is compiled, and these are some of the build artifacts when you run the command npm run build. So when I ran this command npm run build, you can see here npm run build. I was running this command, but when I ran this command, I end up into an error, and this is very important. Intentionally, I wanted to show you this error, that why it failed, why in my case in first place the npm run build got failed. But the error it was showing was is ESLint validation error. What it was showing me that error event listener or event listener object is not defined, no undef. So this was the basically error which I was getting when I was building the build artifacts using the npm run build command, and the error was event listener or event listener object is not defined. So if you also get this type of error in your scenario, some maybe no undef kind of error or ESLint error, to be very precise, how you can resolve it, that's what I wanted to showcase you. So first of all, where we have used it in creating our controls or for this component. I created refresh data of type event listener or event listener object. Now how you can troubleshoot and resolve this error. So troubleshooted is that here this is the line number 12, you can see where we are getting the error. So there are two ways how you can resolve it. The first and the quickest one, you just add a comment here in your Visual Studio Code that comment ESLint hyphen disable hyphen line. The moment you add this, your npm run build will get succeeded. Okay, this will be ignored. Basically what we are doing here is that we are disabling this line during the ESLinting. Okay, this is the first way to resolve this. What is the another way, and maybe the best recommended way, I will say, what you can do, you can go to your ESLint rc.js file. So this is my eslint.rc.json file, and in this section, in this file, you will find one section called rules. So in the rules, what you can say, no undef colon warn. So the moment you do this, that you are saying that when you get this no undef, so you are defining a rule in your lint.json file, that when we get this type of error during the building process, during the compiling process, no undef, it's just a warning. It should become not an error. So I did both of them. Maybe you can do only one of them. This is just for the demo purpose. These are the two solutions. Either you add this rule in your lint.json file, or directly in the index.ts file, wherever you are getting this error, no undef, you add this comment in front of it, eslint.disabled hyphen line, and your issue will be resolved. So in my case, I did the same thing, and I again ran the command npm run build, and this time you can see the build got finally succeeded generating the build outputs. This gave me generating build outputs, and finally it got succeeded. Once it gets succeeded, as I told you, there is a folder which gets created in your project folder with the name out will have a folder called controls will have a folder linear input control demo, and in this you will find two build artifacts, which is bundle.js and control manifest.xml. So till now we have reached that how you can build your component. So finally we are succeeded in building our component using npm run build. Now the last part of this video, how you can debug your code component and how you can see the output of this particular component which we have developed recently. So you have to debug your code component, so that way you can use npm start watch command. Please remember, you can also use, just you want to see the output, you can use the npm start command. It's not always necessary to use the watch, but I prefer to use the watch command, so that the moment I make some changes, I can also watch it in my browser, in my window, so that I always use npm start watch command. So you can see here I ran the command npm start watch. It initialized, validating the manifest, validating the controls, compiling and building the control. And you can see here that the browser session gets started on localhost 8181. So that let's do this. That what we will do now, that we will run the command npm start watch in our Visual Studio Code. So I'm just opening the terminal. You can see here that I am in the terminal. I am in the CPCF demo 1 folder, And you can see here that once I ran this npm start watch command, it will start the browser session and the local host will start on 8181. So let's do it this time. Here I'm just saying npm start watch, and I'll just press enter. What it will do, it will open the browser, which is a local host, kind of a sandbox, you can say. It will open it where I can at least see the output, whatever component we have developed. So as I said, the output of this particular demo of field type is to convert a numeric type into a slider type. So you can see here it has initialized, validating the manifest, validating the control, and finally it is opening the output in the browser window with HTTP localhost 8181 port. So that is how it has opened it. Now we have successfully implemented our first PCF component. You can see here that 468 is my value, numeric value. I am showing it on a slider. You can see whenever I am changing the value on the slider, the control value which I have also given in the data output is also getting changed. So you can see here I'm just extending it, and I have converted a numeric value into a good looking, maybe a slider, instead of just giving a numeric value to the user. And here we have implemented it in the form of a slider. So that's all in this video. In this video we have learned that how you can create a PCF component project using the pack PCF init command, what are the different files gets created, how you can build your code component using npm run build command, and finally how you can see the output or debug your code component using npm start watch command. That's all in this video. Stay tuned for more videos on PCF. Thank you.